So today I want to talk about one of the biggest subscriptions you can buy in gaming today, Xbox Game Pass. Now, Xbox Game Pass has been a staple of the gaming industry since its inception in 2017. It initially launched with 100 games, and most of them were smaller indie titles. And while it was a solid deal, it was not the AAA gaming one-stop shop it has now turned into. Microsoft and Xbox as a whole have gone all in on Xbox Game Pass, making it the one-stop shop for AAA games, RPGs, day one releases, and much more. Now, they've even introduced tiers and gone away with Xbox Live Gold, with Game Pass Essential being the first tier, Game Pass Premium being the middle tier, and then Game Pass Ultimate being the last tier, getting you everything that Game Pass has to offer for both your Xbox console and your PC. And for a long time, the value for Xbox Game Pass was amazing. I mean, Ultimate started at $12 a month, and for that, like I mentioned, you would get access to the entire library of games for both your PC and your console, while also getting integration with other subscription services like EA's Play. You'd also have access to every single Xbox Day One exclusive release on launch with Game Pass, which also added an immense amount of value if you were someone that loved Xbox exclusives. But unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, because Xbox slowly but surely has been raising the prices for all the tiers for Xbox Game Pass. And now, with this latest price increase that happened just a couple of days ago, we're talking about a 50% price increase for Game Pass Ultimate from $19.99 to $29.99 a month. And that's not to mention the increases in price for the last two tiers as well, with Game Pass Essential now going up to $10 a month, and now Game Pass Premium being more expensive than Game Pass Ultimate when it initially launched at $15 a month. So with all these price increases coming in 2025, it's finally time to answer the question: is Xbox Game Pass still a good deal, and is it still worth it in 2025? Before we begin, if you like this type of content, make sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing to see more content like this. I appreciate all the love on my Borderlands 4 video. We're trying to grow this thing to 1,000 subscribers. If y'all could subscribe, it would really help me out. But yeah, now back to the video. So without a doubt, if you're even gonna look at Xbox Game Pass as a whole, you have to either have an Xbox or a PC and really care about Xbox exclusives. So now let's look at Xbox Game Pass from a value perspective if you were to really only play Xbox exclusives. So since 2020, so about 5 years ago, there have been 10 first-party AAA Xbox exclusives released. Now, if you bought those at $70 a pop, which is what the going rate for AAA games are nowadays, you're looking at spending about $700 through these 5 years. Now, if you've had Xbox Game Pass Premium, which has now ran anywhere from $10 to $15 a month, we'll call it even at $12, you're looking at spending about $144 a year for Xbox Game Pass. Compounded that with 5 years, you're talking about $720 spent. So obviously the value is not there if you're just looking at Xbox AAA first-party releases, but that's not really the point of Game Pass. The point of Game Pass is, yes, there are those AAA first-party releases, but you also have the backlogs of some of the most iconic developers of all time, like Bethesda and Rare. And you also have like other types of genres and other types of games with simulator games like Slime Rancher or Power Wash Simulator, and also some Call of Duty games as well, because obviously Microsoft now owns Activision. So without a doubt, this is not the best way to use your Game Pass subscription, nor should you ever really consider it if you're only planning on playing those first-party exclusives. But here's the problem. Even though there are hundreds, if not thousands of games available for Xbox Game Pass, who has the time to play all of them? I don't know about y'all, but I don't. And to me, there lies the crux of the problem and the value with Game Pass. How many games are you able to play per month for you to be able to consider that you are getting your value in terms of how much money you are putting into Xbox Game Pass? Now, I'm coming at this from a narrative RPG gamer's perspective because that's what I primarily play. And also, to me, I do feel as though that is where Xbox Game Pass has the best chance to show its value, because you're going to be playing one full game and then moving on to the next, and then playing a game and then moving on to the next. You're not just spending like the entire time playing one game like you would if you were playing a Call of Duty or something else. You are essentially moving on after you finish a game's story, theoretically. Now, assuming an average game is $60, which is lower than the right now AAA pricing of the majority of games. Back in the day when Game Pass Ultimate was only $15, you'd really only theoretically need to play a fourth of a game per month for you to be able to break even on if you were just to buy that game outright. But unfortunately, that is not how it works. With the $30 now increase to pricing, you need to play half a game per month for you to even just break even on the value of Game Pass. Now, on paper, that seems doable, right? Half a game a month is like not that much at all, but when you kind of factor in the fact that most RPGs are anywhere from 40 to hundreds of hours, depending on if you're playing a game like Skyrim or Fallout, you're looking at playing at least, at the bare minimum, 20 hours of a game per month, and on the top end, up to 50 hours of a game per month for you to consider the value to be there in Game Pass. Now, for a professional gamer, that might be nothing, but for a college student like me, or for someone that, I don't know, has a job or kids or a family, finding time to just play 2 to 3 hours of games per week could be a daunting task. And now you're asking to play 20 hours a month, which is almost 5 hours a week, if not more than that. So let's kind of wrap this up and give an answer. Is Xbox Game Pass worth it in 2025? I think the short answer is obviously no. If you're a casual gamer, or hell, even if you're able to game 4 hours a week, you're going to be hard pressed to get the value you deserve with just playing one RPG at a time, hoping and praying to rush through the game to finish it in 2 months before starting another one. The only way I could see it being worth it is if you're a Call of Duty player who also happens to play RPGs or other styles of games, and you have multiple games installed at a time and cycle between them regularly. But at that point, are you really even a casual gamer? You're starting to get into hardcore gaming territory, and even then, finishing one game every 2 months is a really tall ask. You're looking at finishing 6 games a year, all anywhere from 40 to 100 plus hours. Unfortunately, that kind of leaves me with the unfortunate conclusion that no matter how you slice it, in its current state, Xbox Game Pass is probably not worth from a time and value perspective in 2025. You need to play half a game a month just to break even with Xbox Game Pass's pricing structure. If you want actual value, you'll have to play at least 2/3 of a game per month, or even just straight up a full game per month for you to get the value that you probably deserve from Xbox Game Pass. And that, to me, is just straight up impossible for anyone who has a life outside of gaming. Even me, who does this probably more than 95% of people, cannot finish a game I review when I'm in busy months. Take October, for example. Borderlands 4, Ghost of Yotei, Battlefield 6, and Outer Worlds 2 all release in a 30-day span of each other, and there's just no way I can play and finish every game in their entirety to review them. I do my best to play as much as I can to generate a good review, but it is physically impossible for me to finish every game in its entirety. So, unfortunately, as much as I loved my Game Pass subscription for the past 6 or so years that I've had it, it's time to start considering if it's a better value for me to buy every game outright. As much as I love Xbox Game Pass's offering, they've now integrated Ubisoft Connect into it, as well as EA Play. So you get every single Battlefield that's been released for free with Xbox Game Pass, as well as every single Assassin's Creed for free with Xbox Game Pass. And then, not to mention that you get every single Bethesda game, iconic games like Fallout, Skyrim, Oblivion, the Oblivion Remastered that just came out, all for free with Xbox Game Pass. And you also get a lot of Rare's games like Sea of Thieves, which is a really big deal. You get Forza, like I could go on and on. You get Call of Duty. I could go on and on with the amount of games that Xbox Game Pass has to offer in its current state. But at the end of the day, you have to really consider, can you play all of them in a reasonable amount of time? Can you play all of them in a way that you feel satisfied with before moving on to the next game, while also still getting your money's worth in value? Because if you take longer than 2 months to play any one game, you are losing value on Game Pass if you don't have other games installed. Now, I understand, say you have Call of Duty installed and you play that, the majority of the time, and then you have like maybe a Skyrim installed and you play that occasionally. I could see that potentially being worth it. But at that point, why not just buy Call of Duty outright? Because if you're going to play Call of Duty, you're going to start losing money after that 2-month mark. Call of Duty retails at $70. The maps and DLCs now are free for those games. So why not buy the game at $70 and just stick to playing it throughout the year and not spend a subscription and end up spending well over $70? I mean, you'd be looking at over $200 spent if you were just playing one game. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, Xbox Game Pass has served me well for a long time. It allowed me to review a bunch of games that I probably otherwise would not have bought from my own money, like Expedition 33. That is a gem that got released on Xbox Game Pass, and a game that I hold as one of my favorite games of all time, and I would not have played it if I did not see it for free on Xbox Game Pass. But even then, the value is starting to stretch thin for me, because as someone who uses Xbox Game Pass regularly, has multiple games installed regularly, and is constantly cycling through the newest Xbox first-party releases, it's tough for me to justify not just buying these games outright and not having to deal with the fact that not only do I have a lease on these games, I do not own these games. The Xbox Game Pass could easily just rip that game away in a couple of months and say, well, our contract with this developer ran out. They are no longer going to be on Xbox Game Pass. And just like that, a beloved game that maybe I'd come back to and play every once in a while is now gone because I didn't own it outright. And so, yeah, it's important to consider these things when researching and when deciding if you want to purchase Xbox Game Pass. But right now, I'd be hard pressed to recommend Xbox Game Pass to anyone at all. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this type of content, make sure to hit that like button, and please consider subscribing to see more content like this. Let me know your thoughts on Xbox Game Pass down below. Do you still have your subscription? Are you planning on getting one? What value do you see in Xbox Game Pass going forward? I would love to know your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, stay tuned. Very soon, I have a Ghost of Yotei review dropping, and then we got Battlefield 6 after that, and then we got Outer Worlds 2 after that. So a busy October. Stay tuned for all those reviews and all those videos. But yeah, guys, it's been CGG. I'm out.